everybody, and welcome to the Board Game Geek Show. Today, we're going to feature Dave, Nikki, Candice, and me, Lincoln, going over the top 10 games of 2022. I know that we all have lists. Some of us are in the modern era. Some of us are in ancient Stone Age. I don't know what's going on here, paper stuff. But why don't we start with Nikki's number 10? If you really want to start with your number 10, I don't know if you will be.
I don't know.
Because if you're anything like me, I can never have 10.
Are we going to do any honorable mentions or anything?
I mean, that's why that was the whole point of what I was saying.
Hang on. Before we even start any of that, I want to just say that, so to prepare for this show, I went on to BoardGameGeek.
Oh, that's right.
And I did a search for games in 2022, and I clicked a little filter saying, filter out all expansions. And I got basically 4,400 hits.
Wow.
Now, if you look at the games that are just ranked in that list, that's still, what is that right here? 836 games last year.
Wow, that's a lot.
Are officially ranked from 2022.
Wow.
So,
what does ranking mean?
Ranking means I assume that at least an X number of people have...
I believe it is 30 votes.
30 votes?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's gotten 30 votes, which means, assuming that those people have played that, I mean, you can rank without, I guess, playing a game. But the reason I'm bringing this up is this is crazy now. Like,
oh, yes.
It's very... I mean, a lot of my games are going to... I mean, some of my games are going to be on my list with you two for sure, because I played them with you two.
Yeah, right.
But it's very conceivable that your top 10 list of games now and someone else's top 10 list of games can be completely different games. And very likely games, for example, that I've never heard of or that you've never heard of. And it's weird. There was a time in the hobby where you could play most of the games of a year.
Yes.
Multiple times.
That's
even,
why
right?
I suggested that you be on the Board Game Geek podcast, because Candice can talk to the sort of the history of board games a bit, of modern designer games.
It's crazy. So a lot of my games, for example, I don't even know if these are the best games of last year, because the best games of last year are maybe games I've not played.
Exactly.
Right. So I will say up front, you guys have lists. I have completely copped out. I do not have a 1 to 10 list.
What?
I have I have 10 games
There's Dave
and a couple
doing
honorable
his.
mentions. No, I have like 6 or 7 games that all tie for, say, 8.
Yeah.
And like 3 or 4 games that all tie for like 3 or 4. There's no number one game.
It's
okay.
That's why I don't really like that stuff either.
I could put them in a 1 to 10 list, but I don't want you to think then that my number one game is this amazing game from last year, because to be honest, I didn't play anything from last year that I thought was genuinely amazing. There's some really solid games. But nothing that was like...
I thought for sure... Well,
so you have a 13 to 3 list.
Wow.
We'll go into the list.
There's the upfront caveat,
right. Well,
et cetera, et cetera.
I
Dave.
don't like making lists, top 10 lists, and the reason is it's constantly evolving.
Right.
So this list was originally developed for the Our Family Plays Games panel at BGGCon.
Right.
The three of us were, Nikki and Candice and I were all on that one, and it was a challenge for that too. They were very hard liners about like it needed to be released in 2022, because some people didn't get to play them. For example, I think Christina said Arc Nova, which was absolutely a 2021 release, but it didn't really become widely available in the United States until 2022.
Right.
So in my opinion, that's fair.
Right. Well, I did. For example, I played 88 games that were new to me last year.
Wow.
Of those 88 games, I was surprised.
I mean, you're no Steph Hodge, but
I didn't think this many would be from 2022, but 37 of those were from 2022. Wow. That surprised me.
Oh, wow.
It will not surprise you that the next highest year was 2021. A lot of the games I really liked the most from last year as new to me were from 2021.
Right.
So, and then from 2020 and 2019, and of course, I played Scopa last year for the first time. That was published in 1600, according to BoardGameGeek. So, all right, I've interrupted. I've said my piece.
No biggies, but that's older games. I feel like sometimes new to you is fair enough, right? Obviously, people would like to know our
adhering
all-time...
to your thing. As I said, I was pleasantly surprised to find that 37 of my games
good. I know you were thinking
are
that
actually
a lot
from
of them.
2020.
I think that was Aaron's. So Aaron wanted to be here for this, but he could not be here. And I almost got his list from him, but I was like, he didn't even feel he could put together a fair list. And I mean, it's funny because he's been over on here now. Again, games that he plays here may not be his favorite games because he's definitely more like Candice as a gamer.
Yes,
and look,
for sure.
In the grand scheme of things, you can always put together a list, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I can throw out my little curmudgeonly like caveats and just go, all right, here's my list. You're right,
I mean,
Nikki.
a lot of
Nikki
people-
said it. I can put them in. If you said, here are 10, give me 10 titles, Dave, now put them, rank them. I could rank them, I guess.
Sure,
right?
sure. I mean, it's not fun for me to rank them necessarily because I feel they all have some. I mean, if I like them, they're great. I'm a very friendly.
You are that way.
liker
You're
of
very
games.
binary that way.
It's
actually nice because it's sort of infectious.
Yeah, I
You
like
get
games.
very
if I like
bubbly
some-
and
yeah,
happy with
If I
them.
like games, I like,
like
them. So
them.
yeah, I'm probably more like Candice in that regard.
I could probably like tier them, like say these are all Group 3 games, these are
Right.
all
Yeah,
Group 2, and these
that's
are.
more
But
thought
it
than
is
I want to
hard,
put into it.
But
you know?
I don't know. It was like I kept my same list for the most part. I swapped out 2 games.
Oh, okay.
Because I played 2
Since then, yeah, it was
things.
in beginning of November. Exactly.
Yeah,
like
so
it.
that was
Yeah.
the beginning of
Yeah.
November. But then I also rearranged a couple things, but it wasn't too hard for me to rank.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
All right. That's, I don't
That
know.
makes sense. All right, Nikki, go ahead.
Mine go with moods, really. Like,
Sure.
what I think is number one today, I may not be in the mood to play tomorrow, but
Sure.
then 2 days later, I'll be like, yeah. So, but here we go.
Here we go.
I actually wrote down 15 games, so
Yeah. Sounds like me.
evil, evil, evil. So I'm just going to do...
Tell us the 5 that didn't make it then.
exactly. I'm
Just
going,
do all 5
that
right
is,
now.
I'm just going to go boom, boom, boom.
All right.
okay.
Boom, boom, boom. 15, Akropolis.
Wow.
I know.
It's in my top 15 probably as well.
14 is Challengers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 13 is E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial, blah blah blah.
Yeah. Go home. It's right there. E.T. the Extra-Terrestrial.
Light years from
Light
home.
years from home. There you go.
I
Yeah,
have
good.
it all
Okay,
there.
I have it written down.
And then my number 12 is Flamecraft.
Oh, wow, okay.
Flamecraft.
Yeah.
And my 11 is Foundations of Rome.
Oh wow. Okay.
So those are kind of,
Yeah.
they're there. I would happily play any of those.
Right.
But because we're doing 10,
Right.
All right.
If you want to be frustrated, play E.T.
yes. Light years from
It
home.
is hard.
I watched
Yeah.
that video.
hard.
I'll let you guys play
Extra-terrestrial,
that.
light years from home. It is frustrating.
Okay. Well,
but
what's your
good.
number 10 then?
My number 10 is Planet Unknown, and
Okay.
that's published by Adam's Apple.
Yep.
I really like that one.
I wish we had a copy of that one,
I
yeah.
know. And so it's got this tray that's kind of like a Lazy Susan,
It is a
with,
Lazy Susan.
with the pieces separated in.
It's a tiling game.
yeah, it's a tiling.
I don't know this game at all.
Yeah.
It's got a lazy Susan.
Never heard
Yeah.
of it.
Cool.
Never seen
Yeah.
it. This is exactly my point.
Yeah.
Never heard of it. Never
Yeah.
seen it. But it
Yeah.
sounds great.
Yeah, it's really cool. You each have your player boards, and you are driving around on a planet.
Yeah, you're
and
trying to
you're trying to
terraform it, I guess.
terraform it, sort of, and scrape up things.
Yeah,
and
get the meteors that keep
was there a
falling and
meteor or
there's-
something?
Yeah,
Some
meteor
bad
impacts,
stuff you had to clean up, and
Yes.
it's got a grid system that you have to drive around on.
Yeah.
So you're building your space, but you're also having to clean things up before you can put tiles in certain places, and it's neat, and it has a bunch of different sides to the boards. There's a whole bunch of different boards you can play, and there's a lot of flexibility in that game. So I'm looking forward to us finally getting a copy and playing it some more and diving in a little deeper. So
Yeah, we wanted to do it on the show.
Yeah.
We actually did a live stream with Renata and Michael from Michael's really part of the Board Game Barbecue people in Australia. He was visiting, doing a bunch of stuff in North America,
Yeah.
went to Gen Con. They came, he had gotten a copy and brought it over, and he taught it,
Yeah.
and we played it with on the stream, and it was fantastic. We'd already played it several times on the cruise, the
yeah.
BGG cruise. We really liked that game a lot.
yeah. So
Seems
hopefully
cool.
we'll get it eventually.
Oh, cool.
So that was my number 10.
Awesome. Candice, what's your number 10?
I haven't tried that yet, but ever since I first saw it, I was like, this looks so cool, and I've heard just great things about it, but it's not on my list. Spoiler alert.
Wait,
because...
before that, do you have 15? Do you have?
Oh yes. I have. I'll do 3 quick honorable mentions.
Okay.
I would say Carnegie is one of mine. That was a new game from Xavier Georges, who it came out, I think, in early 2022. That's why I think it kind of fell off some people's radars, but it's a good kind of, there's a route building thing, and you're managing workers on your player board. It's very cool. Crescent Moon is another one that I really enjoyed. It's an asymmetric kind of negotiation game. It had some vibes of like the original Dune game and maybe a little bit of Root. But I thought that game was really cool. I played it a handful of times and have always wanted to like play it more and play with people who know the game, because I always had new players.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how it feels once everybody knows it and you really get into it. And then the third game, which I already know is going to be high on my list, but I just haven't gotten a chance to play it yet, and that's Undaunted Stalingrad. It's the new game in the Undaunted series
yes,
from Dana Thompson and Trevor Benjamin, and I just love those games. They're deck building games, and yeah, so I know, like, I've seen demos of it at Gen Con and Spiel last year, and I'm like, this is definitely going to be high up, but I just haven't started the campaign yet.
Right.
So my number 10 is, let me look at my list real quick, Wordcraft.
Oh yeah, Nikki really likes that one too.
Wordcraft.
She watched you play
by
it at
Christian
right.
Giove.
Yeah.
This is a word area control game.
What?
Yes.
And you have letters.
This sounds fantastic.
It is really, really awesome. You have letters.
I'm taking notes.
It can be on our. It's waiting to get played on the show.
Yeah,
there,
you
I'm
definitely
taking notes.
great for game night. You have letters that are kind of laid out in, a little bit of a tableau. And when it's your turn, you're going to come up with a word. And when you do, you take your colored cubes and say, I used an M, I used an O, I used this. And so you're doing this like kind of area control battle on these letters. But then you also have 4 cards at the top, which are end-game scoring conditions. So one could be, hey, come up with a word that's exactly where you use 5 cubes.
Right.
And if you do that, you can also put a cube on that, because I made a word that was exactly 5 cubes, mostly 5 letters, but there's a QU that can take a single cube.
Yeah.
Or, hey, I touched a yellow letter to a green letter, because the letters come in, I think, 4 or 5 different colors. So you're not just trying to think of the craziest word you can, let me come up with a big word. It's like you're thinking about, what letter am I trying to score the most of? That W is worth 4 or 5 points, or, and Dave came up with a W, but I'm going to make another W word and have, so it's very interesting the way it makes you think, and it's just fun. I taught my mom. She loved it. And I'm like, my mom played her first area control game. Snuck it in there because she likes word games.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a word game that I've played several times since I picked it up at Spiel, and I just adore it.
Yeah.
So that's my number 10, Wordcraft.
Cannot
sounds
wait
really
to play
cool.
that one.
Yeah.
I've wanted to.
It is pretty cool.
It would be on my list if I have.
After this, we have to play everybody's game that's on their list that we haven't played.
Well, no, there's no chance that's going to happen for me. But okay, so in way of honorable mentions, I will say that the 3 games that I played the most last year, and these are all online plays, are all from 2021. So these are my honorable mentions. Regicide, which is a cooperative game that just uses a standard deck of cards. Right. They've themed it and put it in a box and added rules. But wow, what a really cool, simple, easy game. And there are ways to sort of ramp up the difficulty once you sort of get and understand how the game works. And each suit has its own like little power that you play, and you basically are trying to defeat all 4 jacks and all 4 queens and all 4 kings. And if you do that, you win. And if you don't, you lose, basically. And just the simplicity of it is great. Super Mega Lucky Box.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is on Brit Spielwelt. And it's just, there's a game that almost is perfectly designed for online play, because you're just clicking things. There's very little player interaction other than sort of like the fight for moons, if you care. So you're really sort of playing solitaire, but you're playing it online, you're just clicking boxes with dice. with cards that get flipped over for your little bingo cards, and it's a perfect little like diversionary pastime. And then Seven Wonders Architects, which is also really great, I think, online. Although that
is that actually a 2020? I think that is
2021 is what is what it shows up on the Geek. And there's a game that I got to like this level and then realized, oh, there's nothing higher than this to this game. Like, you know how some games are sort of simple the first time you play them, and then maybe there's like some depth you discover along the way, and I realized, oh, there's no real depth to this game. It sort of almost plays itself, except there's still something sort of fun to it. And so that's this kind of game for me. That's a game that I'll play a lot of, and then I won't play it for 6 months. And then I'll play like 20 games in a week, and then I won't play it for like 6 months.
Right.
All right, but my number 10, if there is to be a 10, is Lost Seas. This is a game I haven't seen. I've only played it on Board Game Arena. It is designed by Johan Benvenuto and Alexandre Dois, and it is sort of a tile drafting game. You have a 4x4 grid. Is it Blue-Orange, I think, maybe does this?
Sounds like that.
It's like a 4x4 grid, and you're drafting tiles that have octopuses and sea monsters and ships and whatever. But at the beginning of the game, you get 4 scoring things for your columns that are double-sided. You can choose which side, and you can choose where you want them. Okay. And then you get 4 row scoring things, and you can choose which side and choose where you want them. And then every turn, there are, I think, number of players times 2 plus 1 tiles. So in a 2-player game, there'll be 5 tiles. And you're going to take one and place it in your array anywhere you want in your little 4x4 array, and you're going to throw one away. And then your opponent will take one and throw one away, and the last one carries over to the next round. And then you just keep doing that. And you're just trying to achieve whatever the scoring things are. And the scoring things are 5 and only 5 sea monsters in this column. No like shipwrecks in this row. 9 of a kind in this row. That sort of thing. And it's simple, and it's kind of cool, and it's not hard to get most of those things. So a standard game, you will maybe fail twice, maybe 3 times if it's really, really bad. But I've never gotten a perfect board. I've always had at least one fail somewhere. So there's sort of a puzzle aspect to it that I like. Ooh. But there's just enough player interaction with that draft because the throwing out the tile part is great. You don't have to hate draft a tile to stop your opponent from getting it. You can just throw it away. Yeah. And alternatively, you know that's going to happen to you. So it's kind of neat. Yeah.
Cool.
So I like that one.
All right.
2 of the games that were in my honorable mentions are on Nikki's. It's Akropolis, and is that right? Akropolis and Planet Unknown. Also a couple that I have here. Let me double check that I'm actually at 13. I think it might be at 14 here.
How many extras did you have?
I have 3 that were actually in the top 10 before the end of the year. I have Kuzuka, which is a Leo Colavini game from Pegasus Spiele, and it is a cooperative escape game. You're a bunch of animals trying to get out of the zoo.
I've seen that game and not played it yet, so that could easily make my list. It's pretty
neat, and you can't, since you're a bunch of different species, you can't talk to each other, so it's completely without any communication, basically, and you're trying to get, it's what you think you can get through on the map, and it just progressively, you keep working further and further along. It's really, really great. And then Trollfest from Bruno Feduti that we actually did on the show, which I think is a great game. That was from fun. And Camille Messaud from Trick or Treat Studios, and that one's a really fun game with a lot of interesting stuff going on. And then one that actually probably isn't in an honorable mention, but it's Splendor Duel. I've only played it a couple times, but I really like it. It will probably, spoiler alert, it'll probably be on my, there's a list that we'll be doing with 2-player games. And it would probably be near the top of my 2-player games list that I would have. And it will, we really like it. It's really, really well done.
I know, I'm really dying to try that.
I'm taking that as an honorable mention for my list too.
Yeah, and Mark
I've not played it, but that could be on my list probably if I played it.
Very good.
Because I really like Splendor.
And so those are the 3 that I didn't make my list. one of them that I think that's correct. No, actually, there's one more. Jurassic World: The Legacy
Yes.
of Isla
Oh,
Nublar
yeah.
Funko Games. So we played that with Candice. We did
Yeah.
1 through 5 together on the live stream,
And me.
and then we did the starting level 1 with Dave and Grant Lyon on game night, and that is a really fun game. It's we really hit a wall big time on
Big
5,
time.
so I can't wait to see
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
we're going to continue. We probably won't film anything like that because we don't want to spoil it anymore.
Yeah.
But Deborah was like, "I'll come play that." You know, she was really excited about that one
Yeah.
too.
They're awesome mini painting too.
Yeah,
with
so
those.
I had so much fun
Dinosaurs.
painting those minis.
So
I
cool.
cannot wait for
Wasn't
that to continue.
Wasn't that with Mark Johnson?
No, that was with Grant.
That was with Grant. Okay.
Yeah. Mark was the game Switch and Signal that we still
No, but we
released.
played another co-op. I thought with Mark.
We did. No, I don't know if we did. We played
Whatever.
Savannah
that-
Park,
was
which
it.
is a good game too. And
Sure, Jurassic Park, Savannah Park.
Yeah,
That's
a
probably
bunch of
what I'm
park
doing.
games.
All right, meanwhile, what's your number 10?
So number 10 is Flamecraft from Manny Vega and Cardboard Alchemy. It is, first of all, it's adorable. It is like the most
Yes.
beautiful art. I guess it was inspired by Sandara Tang's art. And that is her art. It's just her sketches. I've said this every time. It's just amazing. I haven't even
It's
seen.
amazing because her sketches are like, this is a sketch.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So they don't really look like the end result, which I need to find out what that is. I do need to look into that. But it's a fun game where you're going around trying to fulfill orders with these moving characters, right? So,
Right.
and it's very simple. It's very clear, but it's really, really solid and a fun game.
It's like you're going shopping,
Yeah.
right? Because it's storefronts, and you go to this store for this stuff and that store, and it's
Yeah.
They're enchanting.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Really,
Getting
really
resources.
cute. Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very cute.
Yeah, it is.
And then, and that is actually one of the coolest things. Is like because you're trying to fulfill these goals in the center of the table, and you're just like, oh man, what can I do to make this happen? And you see everybody else's resources, so
Yeah.
you're like constantly, okay, can I snatch that one before they get there? Can I make it to that location to make that
Yeah.
happen? And it's really, really fun.
And the shops have really cool names too.
Oh my
Like, they're
gosh, the
all
funny
fun
names are
with
so
good.
The art and everything.
Yeah.
It's really
And then I'm going to go to my number 9, and then we're just going to go backwards.
Okay.
So that way we
Sure.
won't. So
That
people
was
have a
mix
it
chance
up.
to snipe.
Mix it up.
That was number 10.
that
That
was
Flamecraft. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so my number 9 is Die Vonderlinden Term, which is a
yeah.
Wolfgang Kramer, Michael Kiesling game from Abacus. And it is a really it has a little tiny bit, it doesn't move like that, but Verflixt, that's life. You're moving around that path. But this one, you've got towers, and you have your wizards, and you're trying to get your wizards into this castle. I think it's Raven Castle or something like
Castle.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, though, you can move towers, so we want to cover up at other wizards so that you gain potions, so you fill your potions bottles. And then you can redeem those potions for special actions, which is essentially another action on your turn. And then when you do that, the potions go out, but they still count as being filled. So you have to fill all your potions and then get all your wizards in the tower. But the interesting thing is you're moving towers, covering up other wizards, so now you have to remember where your wizards are at. And then when somebody goes into the Raven Tower, it moves. Yeah, Raven Castle, it moves. And it moves to the next open position of a symbol of that. So it's like you're planning, and somebody goes blook, and then it's gone. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
so how do I do this?
And they can move stacks of towers.
Yeah, you can move
too,
stacks
and
of
you're
towers.
like,
Yeah, it's like,
what?
where am I? I mean,
I
poor
don't
Nikki,
even
she was
know
like,
anymore.
where was I at?
Yeah.
That was a horrible
yeah.
game for
I
me.
saw that video too. Let's answer this question, because the truth of the matter is, like, I actually don't watch a lot of Game Night episodes.
Because you're in them.
But the ones that I'm not in, I often don't watch the episode just to watch the episode. Like for solidarity, I watch the ones that are the games
Sure.
that I'm sort of interested in. But that game looked really cool, and more importantly, it looked really throwbacky cool.
does.
That had, just watching you guys play, that had that old school, old Euro game that I kind of
Yeah, with really
long for
yeah.
feel to it.
Yeah,
that looked really
it's
cool.
really a solid game and really quite fun. We played it before Spiel. Our friend Henning had a copy of it, and that's on the list that we got to try to find,
yeah.
And we were super happy to grab a copy of it and do it on the show already. But so that was Vonderlinden Term. That was my number 9.
Does that have an English name or not?
The Wandering Tower.
Oh, okay. That makes
But,
sense.
I mean, it is English. There are English rules in the box. That is the most exciting thing, I think, right now. Abacus, I guess, is putting English rules in the box. And then Amigo has all of their games in English on the website. If it's not in the game, you can get the German version and have the rules, which is wonderful.
And not unlike the day where you had to find someone that gave you a translation and all this game cabinet and all that sort of stuff. All right, my next number 10 is...
Number 10.
is Challengers.
Okay.
And this is going to be, I'll say this once and then I won't say it again, but this is going to be a global caveat. A lot of these are games that probably all of us, but me especially, I've only played once, so I just don't really know.
Right.
So will Challengers be a game that will have any sort of staying power? I don't know. Will I even ever play it again? I don't know. But I really enjoyed the dual, I enjoyed the deck building duel thing. The idea that you were just competing against one other player at a time. I like the idea that the game could play, theoretically, it plays up to 8, I believe, from the box. But you could get a second game. You could play 16. I mean, you could go crazy.
Insane.
I like that the game, I don't know, the game was good enough. I like that the game is sort of like a sports league thing. And I like that you didn't have to have the best score. Right? That you just had to have, you could build an incredible, amazing, unbeatable deck, and then at the very last battle, whoever is the number 2 person could still beat you. Because a lot of that game is just about how your cards get shuffled and the order that they come up and the way you sort of play them. There's just kind of enough skill and choices to make it interesting, but maybe not enough that it, who knows, maybe it might not last, and maybe it might be. And also, we played one game, and we didn't use certain sets, right? Deck sets. There's so many multiple deck sets. Who knows? Some of them might be even more fun or even less fun. I don't know. But Challengers are on my list.
Cool.
Okay. My number 9 is Roulette-Taking game.
Yeah, I heard you talk about this. I have no idea about this. I mean, it sounds great, but I know nothing about it.
That sounds like a Japanese title that was translated into English. Is it?
I don't know. It is from a Japanese publishing company called Pay Guild.
That makes sense.
I apologize, cannot pronounce the designer's name, but Roulette-Taking game is a roulette combined, like it's a trick-taking game combined with roulette.
Is there actually a wheel that gets spun?
There's not a wheel, but there's a board. There's a betting board that you'll put out, and everybody has money, and you are playing tricks to bet on which card you think is going to win the very last trick of the hand. So the cards range from, I think there are 2 zeros. There's a 0 and a double 0.
Right.
But then it's 1 to 39, I believe.
36 if it's a roulette.
Okay, maybe that's there we go. I know it's 30 something. Yeah, it's probably 36. And there are black and red cards. And the 2 0 cards are green. They're like they are the lowest trump cards. And then the red and black cards, some of them have an image on them. I think the black card has a Grim Reaper, and the red card, some of them will have a Jester or something. But that means that when you play a red card that has a Jester, when the trick is led by a black card, then it becomes trump. But if you play it following a red card, it's just another red card. Okay. So that's how they kind of do the trump suit thing in this game. But one person is going to be the dealer for the round. The dealer does not get to place any bets, but they can block spaces. If they win a trick, they will block a space and say, like, nobody can bet on this space. Okay. But if you are not the dealer and you win a trick, that is how you're going to be able to say, I think I'm going to bet $5 that an odd number is going to win. And you put your little token.
That sounds really cool.
It's so cool.
That sounds like a Dave game.
Yeah, it does sound like a Dave game.
But so the whole time, and every time you play a card, also like 9 cards, I think in a 3-player game, come off at the top. So you block off some numbers. So we know it's not these 9. And every time you play a round of tricks, all those numbers get blocked off because we know that number is not going to win the last trick. So you're kind of like deducing, playing each other a little bit, like knowing what's in your hand. And it's just, I love trick-taking games, and it's just such a unique take on it to blend it with roulette. So that is Roulette-Taking game.
Nice.
That is my number 9.
Okay. I have Decorum on my list.
Yeah.
Nice.
I really had fun playing that game. I just thought it was so funny that you are trying to
I'm now remembering how our game went.
Yeah.
Dave messing it up.
Hey now. Show some decorum.
It's just funny how you're trying to get your other roommates to do things without directly telling them to do these things. Like, I think it was Nick from Brothers Murphy's like, it's such a great passive-aggressive.
Yeah.
I'm like, it is totally passive-aggressive, because you're like, you know, maybe you gotta do, like, I like that there. How much do you like it there? Don't move it.
Yeah.
Why? I can't tell you.
Yeah.
Like,
Don't move it.
It's just, I really had fun with that game.
Yeah, it's really, it's quite a real good time. And actually, I mean, it is sad that Dave kind of it wasn't a big deal, but it did delay us slightly, I believe, is what ended up happening
there.
on there. Yeah, exactly.
It's still funny.
Oh, yeah. I think it's really, really great. And it's crazy how difficult it actually is to get the point across. Like, I think I was battling for something for rounds and rounds and rounds to get that to happen. It was
Because then
pretty
everybody
funny.
was trying to figure out, like, why is Lincoln still not happy with this room?
Yeah.
And, you know, it's
Right.
just, it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's cool. And it's got it's got like, not necessarily a campaign, but a bunch of levels that you can keep going through. I think we played just a demo version of that they sent us. It was really, really awesome.
Yeah.
What's your number 8? Oh, wait, and that was Decorum,
yeah. Okay, my number 8 is Wonderland's War.
Yeah.
I really, and you know what? Decorum, I didn't say, was by Floodgate.
Yeah, Floodgate Games. Yeah, you don't have to say that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's helpful.
That's why I backed up, because Wonderland Wars is Druid City.
Yep, Druid City Games.
So I like that one.
Yep.
I want to play it more. I don't know if it's the mechanics or the artwork, but I just get lost in that game when I'm playing it. I'm really staring at the board and looking at all the options, and then oh my god, this art is beautiful, and then I'm figuring out what cards do I want, oh my god, this art is beautiful. And the asymmetric of each of the players' power boards is cool, but still balanced in a way. You know, sometimes you get into these asymmetric games where you're just like, yeah, if everybody plays that player,
we'd all be
doing well. But that one, even though it's asymmetric, it's still balanced. Your character has
Maybe not the Jabberwocky. I don't know.
Right.
Because James came to show us that game, and he was. I mean, and he's like, he was bound and determined to do well on it, and he ended up not doing well. But that doesn't mean that it's actually a weak character. I just think because we played with Michael Aldrich, and he was doing pretty well with it.
Yeah.
But I think he just tripped up towards the end of the game too, because Steph was really dominating with getting a bunch of cards to try to complete all those goals. I can't remember what the name
sometimes some of those games hinge on drawing the right card early, or if you don't get if the card you want is at the very bottom of your deck, that can just set you back just enough.
Well, actually, it's the tokens in that one, but
yeah.
I felt like there's a lot of ways where you can make up for that problem. So there's not just one course to victory.
I agree.
Yeah.
And so you can kind of adjust.
Yeah,
do
for sure.
forging stuff. You can get Wonderlanding.
Yeah.
Right.
It's there are a lot of different options.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, of course, my problem generally is I think of a course to go, and I'm like, why haven't I gotten that card yet? Why haven't I got? Oh, it's the end of the game. But yes.
Cool. That was Wonderland's Warrior 8.
Yeah.
Okay, Candice.
Okay, so before I say my number 8, my number 9 Roulette-Taking game reminded me of one more honorable mention, and that is Ready, Set, Bet.
Okay, we haven't played that yet. Scott played that, but I haven't played it.
I haven't played that either, but that sounds like my kind of
betting
game.
Because I was at some point I'm playing a lot of betting games.
Yeah, what's going on?
I'm writing that down.
Is there a deeper?
Ready, Set, Bet. And John D. Clay. Both of them. Everything about that says Dave Arnold.
It is awesome, especially with big groups. My number 8 is War of the Ring, the card game.
Okay.
And it's designed by Ian Brody, who is the same designer who made Quartermaster General, which I still haven't played, but I hear great things about. But it is a Lord of the Rings card game, where you play mainly with teams. You can play 1 versus 1, but it's I think it was mainly designed to be a 4-player game, and 2 people are going to be the free people, and the other 2 are going to be the shadow team. And each player, even though you're on the same team, you have your own deck of cards that you're working with. And each round you compete over, you flip a card that's a battleground and a path, and you're playing cards to kind of like be stronger because these are worth victory points. And you're kind of competing over those every round. But the cool thing is, number one, if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, it's like very thematic and well done. Like all your characters and armies are there. But the hand management decisions are awesome.
That's cool.
Like, and when you're playing with a teammate, like if Nikki and I are on the same team, I don't know exactly what's in her hand, and we're trying to like play together to like come up, take the advantage on something, and every once in a while you pass, even though you could play, because you're kind of like biding your time a little bit. But yeah, the hand management decisions are awesome. I like the team play. And also, there are just a lot of tough decisions because every time you play a card, you have to then, cycle a card, which means get rid of it. So it's like, what do I do? Like, I don't want to get rid of this, but I need to play that. So that is my number 8. Are we on?
We're on 8.
Yep.
War of the Ring, the card game.
My next game is King of Monster Island, Richard Garfield, right?
Yep.
And if you
Yellow.
play King of Tokyo, it's not the same. It's not like a King of Tokyo-esque
cooperative,
game.
yeah.
It's a co-op, and it uses that sort of system, so it'll be familiar. It's in that King of Tokyo family. Nice. Again, only one play, so I don't know exactly like how I feel because co-ops. This was one of those co-ops where the one time I played it, the bad deck, right? The deck you're playing against was exactly what you hope for in a way, which was it was completely in our favor every single time.
Right.
And you'd think that would be great, but it ended up at the end being a little anticlimactic. It was just like, oh. But I think that was just an anomaly on our part, and also we had a couple of ridiculously lucky dice rolls as well. So those two combined,
Right.
You know, Lincoln and I always joke, like there's nothing we like more with a co-op the first time we play it to just lose horribly.
Yeah.
Like that's what we want to do.
Yep.
Yeah.
And most of them work that way. But I was really intrigued by the system. I liked the cooperative dice rolling, but you still sort of had your personal decisions, right? It was one of those games where like one player couldn't sort of quarterback the whole thing per se, and that was really neat.
That's cool.
I also like the dice management. There was like way to reserve dice for like maybe tough challenges up ahead, which was really cool. But it also blocked some of the bad things, right, as well, right? Now, if you felt that you could protect yourself in that area or something.
Yes, the defense of like, I'm going to block this, but that means I'm rolling fewer dice on my turn, right?
Yeah.
It gives you, it was nice. It was a nice balance that I assume is a nicer balance than the one time I got, but it was still fun enough for me to put it on the list.
Cool.
That was King of Monster Island.
Okay, well, my number 8 is Dice Realms from Tom Lehman and Rio Grande Games. That was another game night with Aaron and Dave, and I think that game is really, really great. It's one of those ones where when you've played it, you're really ready to play again because you realize all your mistakes. You're like, oh, I really should have done this. I really should have done that. You're working to either upgrade your dice or side grade your dice. Faces, right? You just keep flipping on faces. It uses the dice that were in Rattlebones and stuff like that.
Right.
And there was one other game I think that had that, but it was really, really great. It was hindered by actual
Dice Forge.
Well, Dice Forge has a different kind of dice, but yeah, I love that. Dice Forge is more of a.
But that's still the modular
but it is
faces.
exactly, and that one has more interaction with players. I feel the Dice Realms is more solitaire, sort of. I mean, there are some faces that you can get that will interact with other players.
Well, the way we played it that one time anyway was the friendly way.
Well,
but yeah.
no, we had the die face in there that would have... but Aaron, who is the guy who would absolutely choose something like that, did decide not to choose that because it wasn't what he was going for.
Right.
So, I mean, it means that you can have those types of faces in there, and it really wasn't that big of a setback. It was sending back food, I believe, is what it was, which would be challenging because you have to feed everybody. But I love the die. What I actually really think is the best part of that game is the adversity dice, whatever they're called, where you're rolling those other dice at every round. You're like, oh my gosh! Once again, the worst results come up.
Right.
But it took us a little while to play it, and we played it a couple times because we played probably a couple. No, we finished that game with Scott, and really, really liked it. I mean, it's Tom Lehman. He knows what he's doing.
Yep.
And it's one of those games that's, I guess, was like in the oven for a long time, to get it released. And they did run into production problems because I believe it came out in 2021 in Europe. And it was not available here at all because there was a production problem where one of the die, so let's say there's 9 die in the mold, one of them had a calibration error to hold the face in. And so he tested them, but he didn't necessarily get that one die. You have to test tons of them to see that.
Yeah.
And so what was happening is people roll the die and that face would pop off and they're getting upset. Now, the funny thing to me is,
then it's that one if it popped off.
But if there were more than that one of that type of die in your hand, then you'd be in trouble. But so it's totally understandable. They just literally just stopped
That's funny.
distribution.
Yeah.
They did the stuff in Europe that had gone out, and then they put a recall on those die, and they just sent them all new dice, and then they repacked that thing with dice. So
that's crazy.
It was a long time to get out, and I hope that gets more attention because I think that game's really, really great. It is a little expensive, but it is really solid.
Yeah, and a good use of that modular face, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it was nice.
There's so many faces in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my number 8, Dice Realm. Number 7 is Creature Comforts from Roberta Taylor and Kids Table Board Games. Nikki's is probably coming up on that one, too.
We're getting there.
We really, really love that game. It is a worker placement game that is super friendly. Nothing is blocked. It's very family friendly. We played it on the live stream first before we did it on the show, and Scott was surprised by the game. He thought, wow, this is much more than I thought it was, because you're looking at that art, which is really cute. Yeah. And it's sad that there's a couple games in my top 10 this year that have that kind of that are hindered by that has turned off people. Which is sad because it is really a great game, and there's a lot of fun stuff happening. You're basically a bunch of animals, and you're ready for winter, but you want to try to make it a little bit better for you. So you're trying to get your creature comforts. So you're trying to get all these cards into play that will, hopefully, you'll build upon each other, and you're trying to do upgrades. I think is what the tiles are that you're going on the ladder to do.
Yeah.
It's such a fun game, beautiful art. Really lots of great choices. That's what's really fantastic about it.
Yeah.
And the challenges in the fields or whatever, out in the forest or whatever, for summer and all that, like getting the things you need as things become unavailable because like summer fungus doesn't, the mushrooms don't grow.
Right.
And
it's too dry, so no mushrooms.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I love the visiting people, the visiting animals.
That kind of change a rule for that round of the
Maybe
game.
It's never negative, but it could be something really beneficial if you can make it work for you. But you have to place there. That's the thing. So you have to put your workers in, I think you have 4 or 5 in specific locations to be able to benefit from it, but sometimes you really need this, or sometimes you really need that.
Then you have to activate it, you have to have the right roll of your die.
Oh yeah. So you're matching. So that's the other really cool thing. There's actually a common roll for each round. So you have 2 dice that you roll yourself, and then there's like 4 dice that are a common set. So everybody uses them, so the first person uses them, then they go back in that order. There is some powers that could change a die that will affect the rest of the players. If, let's say, you were the second person to use those dice, but that's it's pretty solid. So that was Creature Comforts, my number 7. What's yours, Dave?
All right, well, I'm going to go from a Richard Garfield dice game to a Richard Garfield dice game. A game that I played and only knew under its German name, Würfelhelden.
Dice Hunters of
Which
Therian?
is Dice Hunters of Therian.
Okay.
It showed up on Brett Spielwelt, I think, before it came out in the English published version. And about halfway through the year, I started hearing the name Dice Hunters of Therian from people, and people were like buzzing a little bit about it, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what that is. And then it wasn't until I think I saw the Game Net episode that I went, oh, wait a minute. I mean, obviously I could have just looked it up, but that's Würfelhelden, which I think translates as Dice Heroes in German. But I like the idea that somehow Würfelhelden becomes Dice Hunters of Therian. Like, it's such a disconnect.
Did it have the animals and all that?
Oh yeah, it's the same.
Oh yeah. It's all the official art on Brett Spielwelt. I really liked this game. It was neat that you could completely win by not fighting at all.
Yeah.
Except
Nikki did very well with that.
Except if you choose to not fight, you run the risk of your other players not also fighting, or like, you know, if someone's there with swords and no one fights them, then they can just sort of walk away.
Yeah.
Some of my Brett Spielwick games were 2-player games. The 2-player game was very interesting because you had to win twice.
Right.
You had to roll twice. So you'd put your swords out, and when it came back to your turn, if your swords were still there, you took all your dice back and had to roll them again. So whatever you got that was great is gone.
Right.
You could roll great again, but...
Right.
Maybe.
Well, right. My realization with that game was we played it on live stream first, and I was frustrated with the game.
Yeah.
And about 3/4 of the way through the game, I'm like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Don't roll those red dice after that initial red and yellow dice after that initial roll. I mean, yes, you need to, but the goal is to not roll them as much as possible, because if you do roll them, if you roll an X, you lose that die. Now you can win it back, but it's a challenge, and you don't want to start like Aaron in our game that we played. He was with like 6 die. I mean, I think he had 4 dice and 6 dice a lot in that game. He had one amazing roll where every die was a 3 sword. So nobody was going to beat him on that one unless it was amazing. And I don't think that Nikki won. But Nikki was doing very, very well. But she also did lots of points just from the coins.
Yeah,
getting
you
double coins.
You can totally win by just shooting for coins and getting a lot of coins. I mean, the first one that's only worth 5 coins, for example, like you can get more than that just from rolling your dice potentially. And even the 10-coin one is, you can, if I'm getting 4 or 5 or 6 coins, or if I roll 3 doubled, 4 coins doubled every time. I mean, a lot of it is just based on your roll, which is what I like about dice games. Whatever your initial roll is, like, okay, you can have a strategy, but it doesn't matter.
Well, the fun
if you're
thing
not
is you can
roll.
also take dice back in and, forget it, I'm not working on the swords. Let's see if I can get more coins.
Now, the advantage of a lot of these online games for me, and in general, right, especially roll and writes and stuff like that, is they play a lot faster and the bookkeeping is all done for you. But the disadvantage in this case, I think, for Würfelhelden is that the running score total is shown on the screen. I think this is a game I've not played in person, but I think I would like it maybe better in person, although everyone's score is visible, nothing is hidden.
Right.
I don't think in the real game I'd pay attention to that.
It's harder to see.
Right.
I don't think I would try to see it, is my point, right?
But
you can't ignore it
on the screen, there's no chance I'm ignoring it. So on the screen, it's a very easy decision for me to say, oh, you go ahead and win that 10 points, I don't care.
Right.
But that's also kind of what's neat. And let me cheat a little bit. I'm going to group Dungeons, Dice, and Danger with
Another
this,
Richard
because let's go for
Garfield
the
game.
third Richard Garfield game. I was going to I didn't put both of these on my list. I decided I couldn't put all 3 of them on the list.
Right. Well, that could have just occupied one space.
Yeah, series.
Right. Well, the co-op was at least different enough for me than the other one. And I actually played Dungeons, Dice, and Danger more last year because roll and writes online especially are really, really fast.
Yeah.
But the reason that I chose Therian over Dungeons, Dice, and Danger is I kind of burned out on Dungeons, Dice, and Danger.
Okay.
I played all the 4 maps a bunch of different times. I got to sort of see the patterns and sort of see how it works. It's really fun, and it's a neat twist on kind of the roll and writes with the little dungeon crawl aspect and having to unlock things or not unlock things. But I've done it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that game's great, but I think that one kind of sticks around a little too long.
Yeah.
Like it's a little harder to get through it.
Or it goes crazy fast.
Well,
if you get to those POW
online,
spaces, really.
right.
But I'm saying, if in the real game, even if you can manage to get to some of those POW spaces early, all of a sudden it's over before you know it.
Right.
And you're like, oh, well, wait a minute.
Right.
Because the dungeon crawl aspect of it makes you kind of want to explore everything. And the game can often end before you've explored a lot of your map, depending on how someone. Anyway, but Würfelhelden, aka Dice Hunters of Therion.
Nice.
That's my.
Okay,
Candice.
Okay, my number 7 is Terracotta Army.
Oh,
yeah.
And the designers are Przemysław Fornell and Adam Kwapinski, and it's from Board&Dice. Terracotta Army is a worker placement game where you are going to be building out these statues into this mausoleum, which is represented by a grid. And you have all these different types of statues that give you different bonuses and work slightly differently. And then you have these specialist statues that you can kind of combine with your other statues. And the way the worker placement works is there's a wheel that rotates every round, and it's one of those games where you can't really plan in advance because number one, you don't know if somebody's going to take your spot, but then also people can rotate things, and it just like it almost doesn't make sense to like start planning anything till you get to your turn.
Oh,
you know,
wow.
have an idea for what you want to do.
Right.
But what I really like about this game is number one, I like the theme of it. I like the fact that you are using clay as a resource, and your clay at the end of the round will dry. So there's a whole thing where you need to try to maintain your clay and keep it wet or keep wetting it so that you can then build more statues out into this grid. And then scoring is mainly based on like an area majority scoring of where these two, I think they're called inspector pawns, that are on one column and one row. And they are showing you, like, we're scoring area majority here, and we're scoring area majority here for the round. But there are other things that can score, like there's certain specialists you can attach that'll help you break ties if you're tied with other statues. And then you care about grouping similar types of statues with others, because at the end of the game there's another round of scoring for groups, and you get a certain amount of points by however many different players are part of that group. But I find I like it a lot because the worker placement side of it is kind of very simple, but like you get like really cool decisions because you can also hire these master craftsmen or something that can give you some ongoing income and give you access to like some bonus actions that you can do, which is really cool. But I love the manipulation of the statues in the mausoleum and just figuring out, you know, your head is all in that grid and saying like, oh, you know, and you also have end game scoring tiles. Not end game scoring, I'm sorry, end of round scoring tiles, because each round something is going to score. Maybe it's, the center row, or maybe it's, this top right quadrant is going to score. So you can plan ahead because you see all of these at the beginning of the game, or you could say, maybe I don't care about that second end of round scoring thing, but I'm going to go really strong on this. Because again, it's a lot of majority. Who has the most, they get this many points. Who has the second most, they get this. You know, so that's Terracotta Army, and again, Board&Dice. I think it's just a really fun game.
I think Adam Quincy did Origins in 2021, and we really liked that game too. That was actually probably one of my favorite games of 2021.
All right.
Yeah, I think
you remember that one? That was the aliens, and you're spinning the dials up above.
Okay.
It is Origins, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But yeah, Terracotta Army is cool, especially with 3 players. I think sometimes with 4, it could run a little long.
Sure.
It just depends on AP.
Yeah.
As always.
Oh yeah.
But I've had some really good like 3-player games of it where it felt like 3-player chess a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh,
that's cool.
So,
that's Terracotta Army.
Me, I am squeezing in 2 games at number 7.
Yeah, because you just realized
I love
something.
the squeezed in honorable mention.
Yeah.
Yes, because I just realized something. Dave said, it's really neat that it's a co-op, and I'm like, there was a game that was a co-op that you would be surprised can be a co-op, which is Carcassonne.
Mist over Carcassonne?
Mist over Carcassonne.
Yeah.
That is a new one. It is Carcassonne, but you are playing cooperatively. And also, it's a campaign.
Yeah.
So you start with things and ghosts, doing things, and then you add a little bit more and a little bit more complication to it. And I just thought the implementation of making it a co-op was amazing.
Yeah.
Because you think Carcassonne and you go, how do you make that a co-op?
Yeah, right.
And it was just great.
We saw it at Spiel. It was one of those things I've heard nothing about. I mean, I don't see everything Eric puts out because he posts just about everything. And somehow I missed that one, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
And there's ghosts. I'm like, it's October. We got to get a copy of this game. And it's very, very fun.
Yeah, there's little graveyards in it, and the ghosts are coming out.
And it can actually be integrated as an expansion.
Yes.
Now it's no longer cooperative.
Right,
but
right. An expansion into
Standard Carcassonne.
Carcassonne. But anyways, so that was
your
a 7.
7.5.
7.5, and then I've got Planted from
Buffalo Games.
Games.
Phil Walker Harding.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go.
Never heard of it.
Oh yeah, you haven't played that one? That's great.
Planted?
Wow.
Oh, it's cool.
Right.
Notes taken.
Planted. Go ahead.
I mean, okay, I like the game as a game, but I also think it's pretty cool that it's in Target stores and the price point is pretty low for like a game that feels pretty. It's not deep, but I mean, it is a game. Right. It's not some fluff.
Well, and it's drafting, and you're passing stuff back and forth, and it's really
you're
clever.
Passing right.
Each
and
round
left,
it will switch directions and stuff like that.
And you're choosing from a grid of plants to plant, and you're watering your plants, and nothing dies, but you want it to get healthy and you want it to grow. So if it's healthy and it grows, you get more points from it.
Plants alive.
But nothing's gonna just die on you.
Yeah.
So
that Nikki, that's her her dream.
Give me all the plant games because I can at least keep that going or alive or whatever. So it's a good, and the art is, I mean, it looks like a plant.
It's very fun. And they have like these,
it's neat.
You have cards that are, you're collecting to certain set collection aspects. So you have, there's cards that are resources and there's cards that are and you have to take in consideration. So you get all these cards like, do I think this card will get back to me? Because it's going to go all the way around the table. And let me look around. Does it look like anybody might want to do it? And of course, 50% of the time somebody takes it. But you can be hopeful. Like, I really need this because if you want the plants to grow, to gain the maximum amount of points that you can score for that, you have to have the resources for that. So it's like, do I take this double sun? I mean, this double sun's pretty powerful.
Yeah, and the tokens are really cute too.
Oh my gosh,
They're
it's
really
a gorgeous
neat.
game.
There's like a plastic suns and little droplet of water and nice little wooden leaves and all kinds of stuff like that. And the one thing to add also is that there's bonus points for like hanging plants.
And that was the set collection
shelves, or plants on the floor and stuff. It's just I like it. I just it's simple. I like it. Oh, I'm going to 6, eh? Haha. Hey, it's Splendor Duel.
Okay.
Hey.
I knew that would show up.
Love Splendor. I play the Splendor app on my phone all the time. I wish the AI would be a little harder, but maybe that's because I play it all the time on my phone. But Splendor Duel is really cool. It really works as a 2-player game. The way the little, do you want to call them tiles or coins?
The tokens,
or
the tokens.
Poker chips or whatever, come out on the board and refill is really neat. And the way the card play works for your sets and how you interact with scrolls and different things with your opponent, and the kind of the goal cards that you're trying to get at the end for the extra points, like the queens and the whatever, the higher up ones, the royalty,
the nobles,
come with benefits on them and not just points. So some of that it's really interesting. They add a new gem type. It's a pearl, and
there's only 2.
There's only 2. There's a bag of these gems, and there's only 2 of these pearls, and so many of the cards need pearls, and you're like, what is going on?
Thankfully, I think we misplayed initially that the pearls couldn't be substituted by gold, but they can be.
Yes.
So it wasn't as awful as you think, but the way you draft gems is. You're taking 3. So 3 in a line, 3 in a column, 3 diagonally. Mm-hmm. But of course, they start getting, especially diagonally, starts to break that up. So you're only taking 1 or 2 coins. And then you don't want to really be the person to have to refill. You're like, oh, do I want to refill? Because then I'm leaving prime real estate for the next person.
So kind of some of the gameplay is like pushing as far as you can, so you're not the one to refill.
Is it the same designer as Splendor?
Well, it's Marc-Andre, but it's also Bruno Catala, who's the king of 2-player games lately.
Because he did Seven Wonders Duel.
Yes, exactly. And I feel there's there's a massive amount of push and pull on that.
Seven Wonders Duel is really good.
It's really solid. And but it is really, really great. There's a Sobek kind of thing too, as far as
a little bit.
Sobek has the grid kind of thing.
The way you fill up the grid is kind of similar.
When you told me about it, I looked online at just to see the picture of the board. And
with Bruno Catala, of course.
And I actually did think of Sobek.
Well, it's Bruno Catala. He does a great job on 2-player games. It's really crazy how good he is.
So that was
Yeah.
my number 7 Splendor Duel.
What was
Okay.
your number
No, that was your number
6?
6. Yeah, 6. Yep.
Okay.
6.
Okay, Candice, what's your 6?
My number 6, surprise, surprise, is Wonderland's War.
Oh, okay.
Yay.
So we've already talked about it, but like I just adore Wonderland's War also.
Yeah.
Because to me, like I've always loved Quacks of Quedlinburg and that whole bag building push your luck mechanism, but Wonderland's War makes it meatier and just like more of a Candice game, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just Steph Hodge showed it to me originally at BGG Spring last year in 2022.
Yeah, I was
right?
just saying, that was the one I was talking about playing with Michael. Steph was playing that as well. Yeah.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
we crammed that in on the last day.
Yeah, it was a late night, and it was just so good. I love the artwork. I love all the, at first I was like, oh, do you need the Wonderlandians? Like, could that be an expansion? But I like having them.
Yeah.
I love that you're pushing your luck to do combat, and yeah, to me, it's Battle Quacks. It's just a
Battle Quacks.
great
Battle
game.
Quacks,
yeah.
Great game. That's Wonderland's War, my number 6.
Okay. Dave?
All right, my next game is the tier break for those who
Yeah.
care all about what I said up front or whatever. And that would be Next Station London.
Okay.
That's designed by Matthew Dunstan. I have
Was he checking in?
I have not played the actual physical game. I have only played all 14 of my plays online.
14.
Yep. Well, again, online plays or numbers are going to be exaggerated.
It's a
anyway.
tiny little game. I did pick it up at Spiel.
It's a flip and write,
Yeah.
and it's one of the few flip and writes where its tiny little size doesn't work against the game because, and this is weird, and maybe I'm wrong and someone can correct me, there is 0 player interaction in this game. It is the only game I've ever played so far that has not even like a nod to player interaction in some way, shape, or form.
So is it an app game, essentially?
And yet, it's still fun to play against somebody because you're flipping a card and then doing something with it. It's just neat to see, like, okay, at the end of the game, what did they do? And how did they min-max their thing? The game is in 4 rounds. Each round is a different colored line, like a red, it's like a subway map, and you're just connecting to shapes. You flip a card and it says circle, and that means connect from one end of your line, either end of your line, to a circle, or a square, or a triangle. It's very abstract that way. But there's basic scoring, and then each game has specialized scoring that comes from a deck, I assume, of scoring cards. So you're going to take 2 every turn, and they'll be different from game to game to game. And you're just trying to figure out, like, crossing a river gets you points, or getting connecting like to so many stations gets you points, or being in all 13 areas gets you points. And you're just drawing lines, but and it's not asymmetrical, but you're not doing the same line ever as your opponent. So if I'm doing the red line on my turn, then you might be doing the green line, and you might be doing the purple line, and you might be doing the yellow line, but we're still going to flip a circle.
Okay.
And then we all do that. Every line you draw is going to hinder you later in the game because you can't cross a line later, but you can go.
Oh, that's right. I was saying to Nikki, it's like the.
But you can go in and out of stations,
The
and
app that she
getting
loves,
different
Mini
colored
Metro.
lines into the same station gets you extra points. So it's sort of a puzzly flip and write game. I don't know if the physical board game version does this, but the online version shows you all the cards in the deck.
Oh, wow.
So that when one is flipped up, it basically grays out. So you can at least look and go, here's what's left
Okay.
of what may or may not come up. You don't
Right.
always get all the cards.
Gotcha.
Right.
And it's just neat. It's a really neat system. As I said, I really like playing it. I think the only reason it doesn't go to the next above that little tier line that I've drawn is because there is sort of no player interaction. It's
Right.
not. It is sort of a solitaire game, but I play it online, usually over Discord with my friend Mike, and there's a lot of like circle, no, triangle, like, we're chanting for like the next card, right? So
That's cool.
some of that is just us, I think, making it fun. But
Did you ever try Village Rails from Matt Dunstan and Brett J. Gilbert?
No, I don't think so.
That's also an Osprey game that's quite good. That we played. It was sent to us, and we're like, oh, let's do it on the stream, and then it wasn't coming out for 3 months. We're like, oh, crud.
yeah.
We didn't know. There was no
Yeah.
indication of what it was. We were so excited about it, but it is quite good too.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so it's to me. This is my number 6, right? No, 5, right?
6.
6.
Okay.
6, yes.
So my number 6 is Foundations of Rome from Emerson
there you
Matsuuchi,
go.
and Dave played that with us.
Yep.
And Arcane Wonders. It is the most overproduced and beautiful
Yes.
tile-laying game ever made. And I wanted it. So we went to a gaming event and we walked in the door and James Hudson's like, "You got to play this game." And we're looking at it on the table like, oof.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
like-
Yeah.
It's hard to tell. The pieces are great. You think, well, this could be something, but it also
No,
can
it
be
didn't,
like...
it didn't mean bad. It was just like
Oh.
our brain was jelly
I'm
from
like-
driving nearly 2 hours
Oh, I see.
across
I
the
don't
city
wanna
to the
get-
southernmost part of
yeah.
the city. And I'm just like, he's like, no.
Yeah.
I can teach it in 5 minutes. We can play it in an hour.
I know.
And so we sat down, and I'm just several turns, and I'm messaging Scott. I'm like, "Do we have Foundations?
Yeah.
I need to get Foundations wrong."
Yeah.
And we literally, I think, played it within weeks
Yeah.
after returning, because we played it just before it to BGG Spring, and then last year, and then when we came home, we played it with Dave and Nick Murphy, and man, it is great. It is a beautiful game.
Yeah.
I do hope at some point they'll do a smaller version so that people could get it, because
Yeah.
just the base game, at least get people into that, because I understand why you don't want to fork it at this point in time and everything, but it is because it's quite steep. They are not even doing, there's the Senator and I can't even remember the 2 classes. They're not even making the basic one anymore. They're only doing, because
really?
nobody, all the people that backed the original campaign,
Sure.
it was a tiny amount of people went for just the base game.
Okay.
And so, it's fantastic. It is really fun, and it's a great game to get people into that type of game, as far as
I
tiling,
think
because it
that's-
really isn't that hard. Like, you start off at a basic level, makes quite a bit of sense, but I also feel that the production kind of hinders it a tiny bit, because you have these little pieces that you're putting around that indicate the plots of land that you have titles to, and you can't see them sometimes, like, because the buildings are a little big and it obstructs that, so it needs more of a bird's eye view. You got to probably stand up and play it more often. But yeah, we've had a couple games recently like that where it's gorgeous, but you're like, well, that kind of hurts it. I can't see what's going on the other side of that thing.
Yeah.
The obelisk and and then the Eiffel, the Trump Arc de Triomphe in Paris. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Beautiful looking stuff, but
Right,
it
right,
kind of
but
gets
it
in the way.
obstructs.
It's kind of a bummer. So that was my number 6, and here comes my number 5, right?
Yep.
So Findorf from 2F Spiele and
Right.
Friedemann Friese. It is the latest large box game from 2F Spiele that was released in 2022. We've actually never played the real version of the game. We've only ever played the prototype.
It was pretty close
It's
to
sitting here right
done.
behind me. It's
I
one that we
know.
want to play on the show. We really love it. It was done. We played
Yeah.
it within a month of its actual release. And it's a different kind of game. It's it has like the market that Power Grid has, so that initially you're working with peat as your resource, and then you move to coal, and so the peat becomes less valuable and the coal becomes more valuable, and the way you have to like put the things that you're spending on the board, particularly the rails. And that sorts of, you're building from Findorf to Bremen. So Findorf is basically a suburb or a neighboring town. And it starts to really accelerate the game. But the thing is, you only ever have 5 cards. You can do more than 5, but you have 5 cards, and then there's a market of 5 cards, at least in the 4-player game. And you could always just switch gears and take one of the ones from above, but one of the ones in your hand is going to go back. And so I love that element of it. They're all worth exactly the same amount. There's a really fantastic thing in the game where there's a slider that shows time advancing. So you have these buildings in the year that they're built. If you build them earlier than the time is on the track, you pay the full going rate. If you can wait till it gets to that window, it's cheaper to build.
Oh, neat.
And it's
That's
a
cool.
really neat thing, and really like nerve-wracking, because you have other people playing cards that relate to the cards that you have in your hand. So I had a later thing that needed to have something else come out before that could go out. And so, should I have kept that?
Yeah.
Should I have gotten rid of that and gone for
Right.
something else? And part of me says I should have gotten rid of that and gone for something else. But it's great, and we're really looking forward to doing it on the show. So that was Findorf from 2F Spiele and Friedemann Friese.
My next game, and I feel like I have a type going on here. My next game is
Another rolling right.
Dice Hospital,
Oh my gosh.
Emergency Room.
Okay.
What?
By Matthew Dunstan and Brett J. Gilbert.
Okay.
So Dice Hospital came out in 2018, but Dice Hospital Emergency Room was last year. And I never played Dice Hospital,
Right.
or at least I don't remember if I had played it. But
Okay.
this is a roll and write, and it's...
You track your plays. You would know, right?
Yeah, but I didn't look it up.
Okay.
I didn't look it up for purposes of this show, and I'm sorry.
No worries.
I'm assuming that Dice Hospital resembles Dice Hospital Emergency Room. Maybe not. Maybe Dice Hospital was... Oh, maybe I did play Dice Hospital. That might have been like a board game.
Okay.
And that this is like the roll and write spin-off of it.
Okay.
It's a really... Here's how see if I can sort of describe it. There are... there are 21 cards in a game, and you put a card out, and each card has 3 different powers on it, okay? And then you roll 3 dice, a red, a yellow, and a blue, and those dice are assigned to those things. Now, I don't know I've only played it online, and online the dice are just rolled and assigned. So maybe yellow is always here and blue is always, maybe the colors are always in the same spot.
Okay, gotcha.
And on your turn, you're going to take one of those dice and use it to write that number somewhere on your board, and you're also going to get whatever power is associated with that die.
Right.
Of course, there are all kinds of constraints to how you are building. Your board is going to have spaces that can only take red or yellow or blue. Some spaces are white. You can take any color. You are building in these little hospital wards, and that has to be increasing in value as you go, but there are ways to mitigate that. There are ways you can +1, -1 numbers.
Okay.
There are ways you can circle a number, which basically resets it. It's sort of like getting the 6 in Ganshon Clever, okay? But you need to get the die with that power in order to get that power, so you need to take that die. And it works similar to Ganshon Clever in that if it's Nikki's turn, she's going to take one of those 3 dice, and then the rest of us can use either of the other 2.
Right.
And we can all use the same one.
Gotcha.
There's a way you can spend a blood bag to reuse the die Nikki used.
Okay.
You can also spend a blood bag to change the color of it. I mean, there's all kinds of ways you can modulate, and all you're really trying to do is score points.
Right.
You score points for getting to the ends of your hospital wards and filling them. There are 7 of them, and they each are more or less points depending on how short or long the path is to get there. And then every game has 4 cards that are scoring cards that are good for everybody. 2 of those cards are cards you race to get points. First is like 8, second is 5, third is a set of steak knives, and then the other 2 cards are endgame scoring. And it's just the combination of the weird scoring and trying to figure out what dice you can lose. And the thing I love the most about it is if you can't use a die, it's a -1 point. And if you can't use a second die, it's still just -1 point. And if you can't use 4 dice, then you filled your -1 point slots, but that doesn't end the game. The game is always, I think, 28 cards or 21 cards. So once you've done that, and by the way, you're maybe never taking more than 1 or 2 negative points, if at all.
Right.
But if you have to take a 5th die that you can't use, it's free. There's no negative points. You're only ever going to lose 4 points by being, by getting unfortunate dice that you can't somehow augment. And some of the, I don't remember the exact rules, but some of the powers you can use, even if you don't place the die. Others you have to place the die to use. But so you can still take a -1, get the circle that you need, or get the blood bag that you need, or whatever, and use them. And it's I don't know, it was a neat, interesting roll and write, and the thing I like the most about it, other than all the various ways you can augment and change stuff and manipulate things, is that the variety of the scoring cards that I've seen so far. Let me see how many I played this game. I've only played this game 4 times, but 4 times last year. This is my list from last year.
Okay.
I played it at least 10 or 15 times probably this year
Okay.
already. And the variety in the scoring cards and the weird combos that they create when they come up make the game really interesting.
Neat.
So that's Dice Hospital ER Emergency Room.
All right.
Okay.
My number 5 is Tylatum.
Okay.
Danielle
Okay.
Tascini and
Yep.
Simone Luciani. This is another board and dice game that is in the game. We're merchants and we're traveling around Europe, and It has like kind of the vibe of a classic Euro game. Which is actually my least favorite thing about it is the theme is just like,
all right.
because I'm like, it could have been something neater. Like somebody said one time when I brought that up, it was like, it could have been like board game conventions. Like you could be going to different board game conventions.
Limited appeal there.
Anyway, that's the only ding for this game, but this is just, I mean, these two designers, they know what they're doing. Yep. This game is so competitive and just so good, and there's so much replay value because basically I think there's 4 rounds or 5 rounds, I forget how many rounds, but you are competing, or you have these different festivals which are different locations on this map of Europe. It looks like Orleans or something, that kind of map, and you're trying to get your merchant wagon to these different locations so that you can score at these different locations. There's something where like, oh, maybe you're scoring whoever has, you get 6 points per this you have. But you have to have your merchant there, or you have to have one of your little houses there in order to like score that festival. So you have these different festivals. And the crazy thing is, this game, you randomly pick the festival locations every game. And there are like lots of different festivals, so that can like drastically change up each game, which is kind of neat. But the main thing you're doing on your turn is you are drafting a die from this wheel, this action wheel, and all of the dice are colored. Oh, here's my second ding. The colors of the dice aren't that great. Like some of the resources are too like, wait, am I getting yarn or am I getting stone?
Too similar
the
to
colors,
each other?
yeah.
Right.
That's
How many different colors are there?
I think there are like 6 different colors, but there are like some like gray, tan, like they're way too close. Like they just could have been a different color.
Right.
And I'm not sure why that happened like that, but so that's my second little ding. But you take a die, and say I take a 5 pink die. That means I'm going to get 5 food because pink represents the food resource.
Right.
And then I get 2 action points of whatever that action is. So everything is 7. Totals to 7. So if I get 5 resources, I get 2 action points of some action.
Okay.
If I get 1 resource, I get 6 action points of something.
Oh, that is really
And the wheel
cool.
rotates every round. Then there are also these bonus tiles, because the game is called Tile Atome. So you have a player board where you're collecting these different types of tiles, and they do different things, and you have a little storage area of 4. So you have to make sure you're not going over your limit, or you cannot take a tile. But everything in this game, and then there's also a king track. There's a king track you can kind of work up, and the only reason you really care about that, like if you get high on it, you can get victory points, but the main reason you care about it is because, number 1, you can get a bonus at the end of the game. That is turn order. Turn order is extremely important in this game.
Okay.
So there's like, one of the actions is to bump on this track. Another action is you can move pieces around on the map. You can get these little contract tiles, which are very Eurogamey. Get some resources, I get points, But there are a lot of things going on, and I feel like everything in this game is so competitive. Like, you will be sitting there like, I want to do this thing, and my backup plan is that thing. Dave's ahead of me, he just did this thing. Nikki just did that thing. Okay. I have to, everything is so good that everybody wants it, and you have to be able to, figure out how to pivot. It is very much a point salad game, so scores are going to be, in 200s and everything. Right. But it just, I don't know, it just, gets you going, because you're like, oh, well, I got to do that, and I also have to do that.
Right.
But if I don't position myself there, I won't be able to do that. But they just did that thing that I want to do, and it's constantly that. And again, the locations of the festivals will drastically change every game and how you play it. And I think this game is going to be one of those games that, is going to be kind of a classic because of that. It's not going to overstay its welcome. You're going to keep learning new things from playing it. Again, just similar to Terracotta Army, it can suffer from AP problems because again, you can't really decide what you want to do. You can have 10 backup plans if you want, but that is one challenge with it. But it's just such a smooth design.
That's cool.
And it's again, the only things are the theme is pretty lame to me. If you told me it was a game from 2015, I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. merchants in Europe, exploring Europe, you know. But it's
Well, that's
like
been 20 years or more of that.
And I also understand the argument of people are afraid to explore different themes because they're controversial. This, you know, but try.
Yeah.
Just try. But it's a great game still, and that is Tiletum.
Okay.
All right. Cool.
Nikki P.
Hey, guess what? Mine is Creature Comforts.
Hey.
And I think Lincoln pretty much said like everything there is to say about that game when he was talking about it. So I just really like it. And I really just, you know, the main thing that I like to point out, because I heard so many people say it, especially after I had put it on my list for
Our Family Plays Games.
Our Family Plays Games thing was, do not underestimate this game.
Underestimate it, yeah.
Underestimate this game because of the box cover.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in this game. There's a lot of decisions to make. There's a lot of manipulation of the dice and how to get things to work in your way, and the way the cards come out isn't going to be the same every time you play the game, and there's a lot to it. The cute artwork, I personally love it, and I don't care if a game has cute artwork. Cute artwork to me does not say that it is a children's game, but for most people, that's what it conveys, which is very unfortunate to me. But yes, I just love that game. And my number 4 is Guild of Merchant Explorers.
Matt Dunstan and Brett J. Gilbert.
Well, I can't
This is near
help
Matt J.
it.
Dunstan.
That one's really super cool. Got a lot of variability. There's a whole bunch of different maps. There's a whole bunch of different cards that could or could not come out on a turn. You know, it's an area chaining out to reach goals on the map to different things with cubes, and there it is. I really like that game. It's a lot of fun, and there's a lot of ways to play it.
It's quite a good game.
Yes,
We did play it with Dave, I think, finally we actually, spoiler alert, we shot that game 3 times.
Oh my gosh.
We had problems with, we forgot something that we needed to do. Nothing wrong with the game. It was a perfectly wonderful playthrough.
Yes, it was.
But we forgot something, and then the second one, I don't remember what happened, but then we
Technical problem?
I don't know. It was
one of
something.
The cameras? I think it was one of the cameras, I thought.
I don't remember, and it was terrible. And then then Dave we finally did it with Dave, but we did it with, I know what it was. Deborah and Mike both felt that they didn't score points they should have scored.
Yes.
And that is part of that game. It's like it seems like it'd be
attention,
you have to pay a lot because you do a lot of stuff at the same time. And we actually end up just specifically doing it, each of us doing a turn and going around, because that way it would just make sure that it was all clear for the video. That's the downer about it. Like, we had 2 wonderful plays previously, but there were problems as far as like clearly, doing the game. But anyway, that was a side, but go ahead.
Okay, who wants to go next for number 4?
It's Candice,
Okay.
My number 4 is Mosaic.
I haven't played that yet. Gigantic box.
Yeah, it is a card drafting, engine building, civilization building game. And it is just one of the most streamlined civilization building games I've ever played. You can play it with 4 players. I mean, it's like, still a big civilization building experience, but you can play with 4 players in 2 hours, and that's crazy. Okay. Glenn went through and just made so many things. I feel like I play civilization building games. You usually have rules you can only put this thing 2 spaces away from that, and all these exceptions. Crazy combat. Yeah. It just simplifies everything. You can build a city wherever you want. Your armies just sit here and they don't fight each other. You might get some kind of technology that lets you remove somebody, but a lot of and also what you're doing is most of your actions are driven by card markets that are around the board, so it takes the burden of learning a bunch of rules, because you can just say, which card do I want to get. The actions are very, very snappy. I'm going to produce. I'm going to take this card. I'm going to take this card. I'm going to build that thing there. Everything just moves very quickly and is very easy to understand in the game. And I really love the engine building of, you get these technology cards, and it becomes like the thing in Terraforming Mars where you're getting different tags and you're racing to kind of complete objectives. Whoever's first to have 6 of the common tag, they get to get that thing. But then there's also a random mix of other objectives that you're going for. First person to have 6 cities built. first person to do XYZ, person with this much money. So you're constantly invested in what other people are doing. But again, it like feels like a civilization building game, like you're growing something, but it's plays fast and it's like really streamlined.
Neat.
So yeah, so that is Mosaic.
Cool.
Okay.
Guess who the designer of my next game is?
Matt.
Yes,
Dunstan.
Matt Dunstan and Phil Walker Harding.
Okay.
Wow.
And this is
Find
the
it
last
together.
of my online plays from the list. I'm very happy that the 3 games after this are all games I actually played.
Cool.
This is my Shelfie.
Okay.
Okay.
That is a tile laying game with nothing but player interaction.
Okay.
It's really pretty simple. You lay out a bunch of tiles in sort of a weird pattern that sort of looks like not a snowflake, but like a plus sign sort of. And on your turn, you can take 1, 2, or 3 tiles from whatever is exposed. So part of what you're doing is taking the tiles you want, but also maybe not trying to expose tiles you think other players want. And you are dropping them in your shelf. They're all little knickknacks that would be on your shelf, like trophies, plaques, books, cats. And you have a 6x6, I think, shelf. And you take whatever tiles you pick a single column, and then you drop those tiles essentially in the column in whatever order you want. And you're just trying to basically create scoring patterns, the generic scoring pattern of any connected group of 3, 4, 5, or 6. You don't score for a group of 7 or more. And then you have 6 spaces on everyone has a little secret card that's 6 spaces that wants 1 each of the 6 colors, essentially, of the items. And then there are 2 fight for it, first place, second place scoring for weird pattern things, like have the 4 corners be the same, or have 3 lines that only have 3 separate items, or don't have all unique in 1 column, or stuff like that. So you're racing for points, you're trying to build things. It's really simple, it's really neat. It's not gonna like blow your mind, but it's very solid. This is one of the few games I could see myself playing all the time, every year, a couple plays every year. Well, it's online, so that makes it easier, but even if I had a real regular games night and we had that, I could see this coming out as an opener or a closer. It's a really nice game.
Cool. Well,
My Shelfie.
my numbers might have been wrong. I don't know what was going on there because I realized I actually have 5 games left and I'm supposed to be on number 4.
All right.
So
Do 2 now.
I'm going to do two. I'm actually going to do 3.
3 now,
but
yeah.
I'm going to do 3, but I'm going to do 2 quickies. So Caldera Park from Wolfgang Kramer and Michael Kiesling is a follow-up game to Savannah Park. And it has a different mechanism where you're seeing stuff in a visible choices in a row above. And so it's not quite the same bingo element or what was the one game from back in the day that we loved to play?
Oh yeah, Take It Easy?
Yeah, Take It Easy. I mean, obviously, it's more complex than
of
that
course.
game, the original one. But the new one is actually smoother and a little bit more manageable. Like you don't have so many horrible things happening to you. But that's one of the fun things about Savannah Park. And it still has some of that there, but it's actually quite different, and it's a really fun game that nobody seems to be talking about.
I know.
Then the other game was Clank Catacombs that we played with. We actually didn't get to play until 2023. But
Did you mean to put that on your
Another
list?
honorable mention.
Yeah. Right?
But
Too many games, man.
The thing that was really great for that game for me was the modular aspect of the board. So it's very similar to the regular game, but the modular part is really cool. It's a dungeon. It makes more sense for me.
Yes.
Deborah argued that you couldn't strategize, which I can understand that, but I mean, it's a dungeon crawling game. I feel that
the
you should know what's
exploration
coming.
is-
Maybe getting out of there, but then you know what you've seen, right?
Yeah.
So.
Thematically, it makes more sense.
Yeah, it was really great, and I think that was surprisingly good. Those are all good games. Everything that
No,
Paul
I've heard a
Dennen-
lot of people really
but the Paul Dennen stuff
prefer
that I've played
Clank
has been amazing. Yeah,
Catacombs to all the Clanks.
Yeah.
A lot of
we
people
really
have been
like
saying
Legacy. We were going to do more of that, and then people keep asking, but that's probably not going to happen. And then my other number 4 is. Actually, my number 3 now, so I was going to do 4 and 3, is First Rat from Gabriel Asiello and Virginio Gigli and Pegasus Spila. Is that one on your?
It's coming up.
Okay,
It's coming
so
up.
I won't cover it as deeply.
No, cover it as deeply. You'll remember it better than me.
Okay, well, I think that game is amazing. It's another one that I was saying I was referring to when I said that Creature Comforts had art style that misled people. First Rat is a really amazing game with lots of flexibility, really fun. It's a race game where you are trying to get as many of your ratstronauts or whatever they are into the spaceship to take off. But what I loved about it was you could do things like, so these rats don't read, so they're going to try to go to the moon to get cheese, and they're very excited about it. And their knowledge comes from comic books, so they read these comic books. So there's all these things that you can do in the game. You can upgrade your technology by reading more comic books. You can have more rat babies come in and help you collect.
Yeah.
But the neat thing about the game is you can move multiple rats at the same time on the board, and the goal is to get them all into the same type of not resource, but
not the goal.
But
you are required
to
to get them in the same.
Well, you want to. You can move one and just do that one thing.
If you move multiple.
Yes, exactly. Yes, you have to get them, and that is really a neat and challenging thing to do.
Agreed.
And we still haven't played it where you can flip the board over and then it's still in groups, but you can randomize the locations.
Right.
So it's like level A, B, C, and D. So you're not going to get something that's normally higher up, lower. But there's all kinds of ways to with the comic books to either improve your speed or and then there's upgrade backpacks and things like that. There's just so much great stuff.
Yeah.
And it has so many strategies that are super solid. Like we played it on the BGG cruise, and one person was playing, Peter was playing just to get cheese. And it's a completely valid strategy, and he was so close to winning. It was just this tiny, tiny sliver. Like something didn't happen for him that could have happened. It was there, but he just couldn't make it happen. But I loved it. Dave, he's playing it, and his strategy, I realized as we're playing it on the show, I'm like, oh, he's going to do this. I can't wait to see how this happens. I was trying to, I generally did my first few plays, I was doing race through everything. I got everything to let me move quickly, which was powerful, but you kind of need to do stuff. And I was doing things, but Dave decided his strategy was, I'm going to go for everything to get him into the ship.
My strategy was race to the top.
Yep. But it was a slightly different thing that I was doing, and I really liked it. I think I might have even done it on the video. I might have done one thing too many. I went and did this, and I should have just given up and continued on. Because the thing is you can take these backpacks and other things, you can steal them from the stands. But if you do that, your rat has to go back to the beginning, which is okay, especially in the beginning as you're building up your engine and trying to get resources.
It's actually preferable in a weird way. That's what. There's all kinds of cool stuff.
And I'm done with that. But so that's
I'll get there.
Yeah, so that's
Your number three.
First rat number three. So there we go. Okay, Dave, now you get to go.
My next game might surprise you, and we don't have to talk too much about it because it's Wonderland's War.
Oh, there you go.
And I almost didn't put it on the list because this is a game that very likely I might never play again. Not because I don't want to, but because not only access, but also because I would have to be in the right mood for it. Do you know what I mean? You know how there are movies that are that way sometimes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Amadeus, for example. I want to see that a second time at some point in my life, but I just don't know when that will be because I got to be in the mood to see that movie again, even though it's fantastic.
Right.
Well, I couldn't not put this on the list. It's such a good game, and it's not my kind of game,
Not
and
at
I
all.
really enjoyed it. If you can get me to like a non-me game.
I wanted you to be in that game. I wanted you to be in that game because I knew you would like it. I was
you were right.
100%. Because Aaron, that's his kind of game too. But I'm like, Dave's going to like this game, and I don't think he understands.
So we don't need to go into more detail.
Yeah. Don't worry, we will.
I figured that you had it up there, but suffice to say, it was such a terrific design. It had to be on my list, even if I never play it again.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, my number 3 is Hoplomachus Victorum.
Yeah.
And
Say what?
Say what again?
Hoplomachus Victorum.
Yeah,
Come
Gazoon type.
on.
Gazoon type.
Yeah.
You guys don't know this?
No, what is it?
I do know about it.
Never heard
It
of
is
it.
actually, Hoplomachus is a gladiator game that from Chip Theory Games. And I think Josh Carlson, Adam Carlson, and Logan Gianni did Hoplomachus Victorum, but I think Josh and Adam mainly, they're the two brothers who started Chip Theory Games. But they had this gladiator combat game that was usually a 2-player game. So a lot of people then, I think Ricky Royal started playing it solo, and it became a lot of people's favorite solo game. So they actually made it into a solo experience.
Oh, wow.
It is a campaign game. It is like probably the best production of any board game I've ever seen, with like all of the components and how they set you up for just a really cool immersive experience. And you go through this map, traveling in these different cities, and then you compete against different enemies. And you have like a hero gladiator, but then you can recruit other people. And Chip Theory Games, all of their games use poker chips as their main component. So all of your hero and your different allies and everything are poker chips that have stats on them, and their health is stacked underneath them. So you're going around and competing on this map that's kind of, is it hexes maybe, I think? But you're moving around, and there's a whole very challenging kind of puzzly aspect to how you're positioning yourself depending on the way different people can attack and everything. And I played it for the first time with another content creator, Brain in a Jar. I can't remember her name right now. But we played it at Gen Con, and we played it 2-player, so it's even like it, which was really fun. So it could even be something that you play 2-player co-op.
Yeah.
And we really, really enjoyed it. And one of the things also with like Chip Theory Games they're getting like way better with rules and easing people in, because some of their games can be very challenging. But I thought this game, after we were talked through like a round or so, I was like, I got this. And it just became like, we're in this game. Oh, this person's coming out. Now, how are we going to move to take down that person and this person? And you're working your way up through, I think it's like a certain amount of days where you'll then get to like the boss monster. But there are other different challenges you can do along the way. I don't remember all the exact names of everything. I just think it's just like such a fantastic solo game. I haven't started my own campaign. I just got my Kickstarter copy, but I haven't started my solo campaign of it yet.
Yeah.
But I think it's just really, really, really great.
So does that mean the healthier your character is, the taller the piece is on the board?
Yes,
That is really neat. The visualization of seeing the guy get smaller and smaller, that's really cool. That is really cool.
Yes, and then you can like give different tactics chips to different people, which can like make them better, or sometimes it's bad stuff that you give to your enemies or you don't want put on your people. But yeah, all the Hoplomachus games are fantastic.
Cool.
But this one is Hoplomachus Victorum.
Nice.
Okay. All right. My number 3 is Findorf, which Lincoln already talked a lot about. So, what can I say differently? Or the things I really enjoyed about it was mostly that calendar.
Well, there was also the placement of the homes that you do.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, I'm trying to build my nearest the buildings that I'm building and stuff like that, because I'm a weirdo. But you don't have to worry about that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think that the way the calendar worked was the most interesting. Different component to the game that I had seen and kind of locked on to. I really enjoyed it. It's a little bit more of a meatier game. And I just really liked I want to play it more.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I want to play it once.
Yeah.
We'll play it together.
There you go.
Go again.
Me again. Hey, guess what? First rat.
Yeah, first rat.
Wow.
So, Lincoln again said all there is. I mean, one thing I wanted to say was there's the bottom part of the map.
Yeah,
too,
the burrow or whatever.
The burrow that you're running around doing. I mean, you mentioned it kind of like read more things. You get more rats out from this little track on the bottom. So you can choose to, no, that's something you get by getting something, right?
No, you can also get the, that's
by landing your thing.
The apples.
Yeah.
Yes,
On the
by the
apples, when you get the apples,
Yeah.
if you get multiples of them, it gives you that much movement in the map.
So there's like 3 things down there.
Yeah, there's a point, there's a scoring
right.
track for the apples, I guess. It's just when you're going around it.
Right.
Every
Yeah,
time
like-
you pass it. But the neat thing is you can make a turn, right?
Right.
You can make that turn
really cool.
just to
Right.
do the comic books,
Right.
or you can continue to get another
Right.
rat, or you can continue to score those bonus
Yeah.
points.
The burrow's interesting because you have to go around in
it's clockwise,
one direction. So if you break to go up one of these, then you have to finish going around to get back to. It's really fun. And the other thing on the flip over side of the board, aside from the
tiles, is the
space
the scoring.
tokens, was the scoring
Yeah.
can change too.
Yeah.
Right.
So things can be different on the
Yeah,
scoring
so
thing.
something like what was the one that's 10? Something was 10.
But anything could be 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
On
That's
the other
the
side of
beauty.
board. Yeah.
Right.
The 10 was the Ratstronauts, which is one of the other reasons why I tried to race for it.
Okay.
Right. So, anyways, that was my number 2.
Okay.
All right, my number 2 is Great Western Trail, Argentina.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just a huge fan of Great Western Trail, and to me, Alexander Pfister knocked it out of the park with Argentina because it still feels Great Western Trail, but it's completely different strategies. There's a new resource you're dealing with. You're dealing with loading ships that take off at a certain time, so there's a timing element. There's a 4th type of worker that you can get. Yeah, it just, to me, you question sometimes when there are different versions of something coming out. Do we need this?
It's very different.
Actually, but it's really different. But it still has some of that feel of if you like this one, you're probably also going to like this one. And it's just different enough, and all of the things that they added to it. There's shortcuts for getting to Buenos Aires and everything. Yeah. So anyway, Great Western Trail is one of my favorite games of all time. So Argentina, I can't wait for New Zealand.
Have you played Oh My Goods?
Yes.
By Alexander Pfister? Yeah. That was my first game, and I thought, this guy's kind of cool. I need to keep an eye out for him.
He does a lot.
I think, but that was before that was
Broom Service.
Broom Service and.
But Broom Service didn't blow me away.
Sure.
Cool,
I'm just saying it's fun.
But no, you're right.
But
it
you
wasn't
also
my
played
first game.
Port Royal.
Port Royal.
Royal.
Never mind. That was my first. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yeah, he's a diverse designer.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of different styles for sure.
Great Western
All right.
Trail.
Well, my next game is First Rat.
Yay! I'm not surprised.
Ta-da.
So everything everybody said, I want to play that modular board because the thing that seems the coolest to me, in addition to just how the game plays in general, is that the variable scoring on the other side of the board to me is more interesting than changing up the path.
Okay.
Sure.
Because changing up the path, I can't imagine, maybe if you play it a lot of times, you'll get to see little patterns within that path, and that just breaks up the patterns. But you sort of alluded to this. Whatever is in the bottom on the printed side, those tiles can be shuffled on the other side, but they're still always be on the bottom because they want to make it balanced, which is right. But the variable scoring to me is interesting because
You could always just play the other side with the variable scoring too. Yeah.
That's because the minute something you don't normally do becomes worth more points, you might have to break out of your own little mold in your head.
True.
Of because we all have games that have variable ways to win, and it is fun to have a game that gives you multiple paths that do all seem balanced enough to be interesting, including, I think, in First Rat, the do a little bit of everything. A lot of games, if you do a little bit of everything, is a sure way to not go anywhere. And I think that can actually a lot of games that have variable paths, you kind of have to pick one and stick with it. Right?
Yeah.
The minute you change course in the middle, there are some games where if you change course in the middle, you're doomed.
Right.
And I think in First Rat, you can do a little bit of everything, but I like this idea of, well, now the nose cones are really where I want to go. So let's go for those spaces.
So my concern about your play is that you were going to run out of things to do if all your rats were gone.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was eager to see how that worked for you because I felt you had a good shot.
My play was I always thought having never played, that was my first play, and having never played it, I always thought that strategy was going to be feast or famine. It was going to either really work or it was going to not work.
Right.
Big.
But not having multiple rats would be rough, to get your last up there, because if you're just running, you can't do each of the components because you're building the rockets as well.
Well, if you remember, I didn't have multiple rats. I almost always only kept 2 on the board and kept the others back in reserve. Because getting to the top
gives you a rat.
Exactly.
Yes, it's cool. But yes, I just was worried. I was worried for you that you would run out of things to do, and because I thought this is pretty neato. I'm very excited about that game's, multiple paths that are super, super powerful. You can focus. You can do multiple things, and Nikki was focusing on building the components, and she actually did really well in one of the games we played. Of that, and because we played that one a bunch. That's one of the most played games for last year.
I liked that Aaron showed the power of the energy drink. That was really great.
Yeah.
I like that. What you were talking about. I like this notion of do I want to pay for this thing and stay there, or do I want to steal it and go back?
Yeah.
And there was advantages to both. There was a lot of really cool decisions in that game that I hope on multiple plays will still all be there. I feel like they will.
Yeah.
My gut says they will. So first rat.
All right.
Okay.
So now I'm now going to do number 2 and number 1. Number 2, nobody's mentioned so far, but I know it's probably going to be on some lists,
Sure.
is Heat from Asger Harding Granerud and Daniel Skill Peterson. I know their names, but it's a little bit hard for Asger Harding Granerud.
Just hearing you say that gives me flashbacks to doing the intro for that game.
And others. We've done, I
Yeah.
think, the Shaky Manor, but that was called something else that they did as well that was nominated for a children's game. But Heat Pedal to the Metal from Days of Wonder. It is an amazing race game, in my opinion. Has a lot of stuff going on. I'm not going to go too deep into it because I'm also going to do my number 1, but I still give some others a chance to talk about it. But I think it is a really, really good race game. Like, has all the kind of elements of stuff that I like, and I love the deck management. I love the heat.
Yes,
The heat is so cool in that game, and trying to get that into your engine to be able to offset the disasters that are coming because you're going into a turn too quickly. And I think that I mean, and it's a lot of people are excited about it. One of the issues is it's a little hard to get right now. It will be available even more so, but it is really, really a solid game. And then my number 1 is Wonderland's War from Tim Eisner, Ben Eisner, and Ian Moss, and Druid City Games. Everything anybody else has said about it. My favorite thing about it is the strategy that goes on in the wars. Like, if you can do things that will manipulate your location. So, like, do I want to win this battle? Do I care?
Yeah.
It's like, should I hold off? Because you have your tiles coming out of the bag, right? You're like, do I want those to... Maybe I want to wait for those to go to another location. And that is really amazing to me. Like, okay, what has come out? What do I got left in here?
You brought up an interesting point that I didn't really think about fully. A lot of games where you're fighting, you're just trying to win that fight.
Yeah.
But it's fun when there's a game, a lot of games have this specific thing. It's fun in a game where there's a battle that's upcoming and you actually have incentive to lose it. Or that losing it is not only a viable choice, but maybe the better choice.
Right.
Yeah.
There's something really fascinating about that, right?
Yeah, it's really solid. And it has the different values tokens that can come out too that's part of the base game on that. And I love all of it. I love the going around the table to collect the cards. It's only 4 cards that you're going to get, but you're trying to build your armies up to be able to do that, to focus on what you can do on the board.
Oh, yeah.
And it's awesome. I think I played Let's Get All the Castles on the Board, which was powerful. You know, I mean, I think that's 25 points or something like that. If you can max up, that's the other thing. The forging aspect of that on your personal boards is really cool. There's a lot to that game that's amazing.
Cool stuff.
We mentioned the game 3 or 4. Do you mention it? We all mentioned it,
Yeah,
right?
it was on
Yeah.
there. Mine's
I
the
think that's
4th
the
one.
Did
only
at any
thing
point today we also just mentioned that it's ridiculously gorgeous?
It is,
Yes.
Nikki was saying how much she
you
loved
did?
the art.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it was
I
so
said the
long
art
ago.
too.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
I apologize.
It is really,
it's
really
so pretty to look at.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just so
very, very
pretty to
well
look at.
done. Awesome
Yeah.
game. So that's Wonderland's War, my number 1.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so let's go, Dave.
So before I get to my number 1, which is Heat, Pedal to the Metal,
Okay.
let me give you my 1.5. This is a game that I have not played. But I know
Okay.
it. But I know it exists, and it occurs to me that if I had played it, it would be on my list. We shot for game night the Exit Christmas Advent Calendar.
Yeah, me
And
too.
we used the
I
one
wanted to
from
say that, too.
2020.
Yeah.
But they put one out in 2022, and if it was
in German
even
only.
remotely as good as the 2020 one, that would be on my list.
Yeah.
Okay.
It has no replayability.
I meant to say the same thing
Yeah.
because I think it's
It's a weird special
we did the
case
Mystery
and-
of the Ice Caves or whatever,
Yes.
and it's really fun. We had a
Yeah.
great time playing that. But yeah, it should have been in my honorable mentions for sure.
It's hard to put on a list because you don't think of it as
Yeah.
a game
Yeah.
from that year.
Well, mine wasn't, right? We only played the English one. That's you should, if you want to get these games, buy them in August for Christmas
Yeah,
because
no kidding.
they're going to be hard to get. But yeah, I'm eager to try. So the Golden Book came out. Search for the Golden Book was this year. This year's English one, and I don't remember what the name of the third one is, but it looks like they're doing one of those every year, and they've been really fun.
Right.
Really fun.
Yeah.
Okay, but back to Heat, Pedal
Yeah.
to the Metal.
Yeah.
I mean, let me just add that you hit the key to it, which is the heat management is what makes the game really, really cool. Because there are a lot of race games where most race games boil down to how you handle the corners. And the trick in a lot of race games is to not hurt yourself too bad in the corners. But in Heat, Pedal to the Metal, it's actually occasionally advantageous to hurt yourself in the corners, because there are times where you want to get heat into your deck. Now, not in the base game,
Right.
but the expansion cards that give you like special crazy powers often require you to have a heat in your hand for that. And so the idea that you want to actually go further through the corners and manage that heat, that's the part to me that's great. That and the really, really, really friendly track management rules in which that even in a 6-player game, I imagine you often don't get blocked that much and maybe at most lose 1.
Yeah.
Right?
Movement, yeah.
And but the really friendly non-blocking rules, the very friendly drafting rules, you know, normally you're behind someone, but if you're next to someone in heat, you can
you
draft 2 more
draft,
spaces.
Yeah.
That gives you a lot of wiggle room to sort of guess, like, okay, what's Lincoln going to do so I can draft off of him?
Yeah.
And I don't have to be exact. I have a +1, -1, right?
Well, the neat thing is you can come back from behind big time.
Yes.
I mean, that's what makes a good race game in my opinion anyway, but that game, there's such an opportunity to make something happen where people then have to get timid because of what they have in their hand going into that turn, and you can just shoot down, because we were playing the base level one, you can shoot down that track and get into that curve and sometimes beat them through that curve, which is very exciting. And I love the way the curves work. It's pretty awesome.
I talked to my friend Joe, who lives in Spokane, and he had played Flamand Rouge, which I had never played. Flamand Rouge. He had described it to me, and now I want to play that, and I actually think I might like that more than Heat.
Interesting.
That just
some people like it better.
It sounds
It's Asger
fantastic.
Hardy Granerud's game. It was Daniel Skold was designed this one with him, but yeah, it has elements from that game in it as well.
That just sounds really cool.
I think the heat is what makes that game heat better. Managing the heat is what makes that game more interesting to me. But I've only ever played Flamand Rouge twice, so.
I played it a couple times. I liked it a lot too.
Yeah.
I like Heat also.
And in fact, I take back my earlier statement from long ago at the beginning. This was head and shoulders my favorite of all of these games, and I could see myself playing this game over and over and over.
Yeah.
Because he had a bunch of number 8s, a couple of number 3s,
and
and
an
one
actual
number
one.
1.
I can think of this as an actual number 1.
Okay.
All right.
My number 1 is John Company's 2nd edition, and it's from Cole Worley, the designer of Root and Oath and Pax Pamir, many other games. But it is an awesome negotiation and economic historical board game.
Wow.
Where all the players, we are different British families in 18th century that were working for the East India Trading Company. And we have different roles throughout the game within the company, different positions. So you're always negotiating with people, like maybe I'm the director of shipping. So you have a ship that you want fitted to go out for trading and everything. Throw me a buck. But there's like almost everything is negotiable in the game. There's a variable setup to the game. Yeah. And it's more of an experience to me. Because every game just feels so different. There are lots of memorable moments. It could certainly be considered a very complex game. Like, I think the complexity rating is probably over 4 on BGG. But the cool thing about it is that if someone knows how to play it, you can do a rolling teach, because the game is very procedural. And the board itself is gorgeous, but it has as you go through the round, you just move this pawn and say, we're doing this part. We're hiring people. We're hiring for these roles. Now we're doing this. You take a family action. And it becomes like when you just teach that first round and everybody plays as we learn, then everybody gets it and it doesn't feel overly complicated. But yeah, Cole Worley is like, to me, just a unique designer.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had been wanting to play John Company for a while. I never played first edition. I own it. I have it in shrink. I'll just save that as a collector's item. I don't know if I'll ever play it. But Pax Pamir is one of my favorite games. And, this is just, again, I don't know how I could put anything else as my number 1 game, because it's just such a fascinating design, and I love historical board games that make me want to learn about history, and you kind of understand the motivations of different participants and different aspects of history and different conflicts and everything. I also, there's a political, like a parliament meets phase, which is like reminds me of Twilight Imperium, the political phase there. Lots of discussions around the table. And again, it's a game that like you guys might be saying like, oh, I would never be into that. But like, I got Matt, who would probably be somebody who's not into that too, and he was like had a great time playing it.
Yeah.
It just there's something like really like fascinating about how it works. I also played it with Aaron at BGG Con.
Okay.
That was a long game. That was like I think we were playing for 6 hours. Like we were negotiating everything. But yeah,
How long does it normally take you?
it would probably take if 4 people have played the game before. 3 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, and it could go shorter because there's a whole thing where depending if the company could fail.
Yeah.
Because you're keeping track of the company's standing, you're keeping track of the company's money and how different people are spending. So it's very interesting, and again, it's a variable setup. So you're not always going to have the same role when we start, and there are different scenarios to it, which I haven't even explored yet. Where there's like a whole thing where you can run different companies, almost like an 18xx game.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So there's just so much to dig into with this, and it's a really like I've loved what I've experienced already, and I'm just excited to kind of dig deeper over the years to come. And yeah, it's just a special game design. That was my number 1, John Company.
Awesome.
Cool. Hey.
Our 10 were very different than our 10.
They're very
Well, you guys
We knew
also
that
play
going in.
together a lot.
Was Wonderlands War the only one we all had?
That Wonderland's
Yeah.
worse though.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right, Nikki. Hang on.
What?
Nikki could change that right now.
No.
Okay.
I know what her number
Not
1
at
is.
all.
Not great Western
So
Trail.
it's Heat, pedal to the metal.
Yeah! It's such a good game.
We maybe should have just gone Lincoln and Dave and Nikki and then Candice because we're back to Heat again. That is my number 1. Everything you both have said are the things I love about the game. I really love the Heat management. I love trying to get my cards working correctly. Unlike you, Dave, we have not gotten to play with any of the
Expansions, or the weather and all that stuff, which are things I'd love to try.
Yeah, there's a
Cool, yeah.
weather element. There's a making your car better. There's like things to upgrade your car. I want to get into all of that.
Yeah.
So, but just at a the basic game level, though, I've played like two of the maps, and I think there's 4 maps in the game. It's a really great game, and it made it to my number 1 just playing the basic level. So I think that says something too about the game.
I like how the tracks actually change the game a lot.
Yes.
That one that is just a big, sort of an oval, is crazy because you have this long run that you can do. That
Without
you can go,
slowing down.
Yeah, that is just amazing. Really, really. And I'm eager to try more of them too. I really want to do the weather. I think that's very exciting
that
too.
would be fun too.
Yeah.
The first time I played, though, I must admit I spun out a lot. But part of it was I wanted to how does this? I'm not going to learn how the spin out works unless I make the spin out happen. So
You had a pretty. I remember that one. You had a pretty amazing.
It was pretty spectacular.
It was appropriate for the game. It was really great.
Yeah. But now I understand how spin out works.
Yeah. Watch out for that stuff.
It was really cool.
Can I throw in one last honorable mention?
Sure.
That all this discussion of Heat just reminded me of another racing game that I would put as an honorable mention, but I just remembered that it did come out in 2022. It was just very late in 2022, and it's called Charioteer.
Okay.
It's a GMT game where we are charioteers. You're racing in Rome, ancient Rome, but it has like a really cool card play system, and you're leveling up different skills, and you're doing attacks which are you're getting the audience riled up, and so they're throwing things and it's impacting everybody.
Oh my god!
But the card system is really cool for it, and I want to kind of explore it more. I like racing games. I like racing games, but it's a little different too.
We could keep adding to the list. I know there's
God.
many more.
No.
As we're discussing things, more
So
things
many
came to
things.
mind for
Yes.
sure. We played Iki this year that I really liked and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yep.
There's so much.
But that wasn't 22.
No, it was an older
was
game
a
anyway.
reprint,
Yeah. So
2015, in fact.
but our version
I
came
don't
out at the beginning of last year, end of last year.
Like the more deluxe-y version.
Yeah, it changed the art and everything, and it was an actual
a couple
wide
rules
release.
changes in
Yeah,
that
yeah,
one too.
yeah.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
But Well, thanks for joining us here today for this. We'll try to do some more of this like this. We don't. Top 10 lists are hard for us. I mean, as you can see, we can't narrow it down.
They're hard for everybody, Lincoln. I think the audience
some people
understands.
love doing it.
The audience
love
understands.
doing it.
I think.
I appreciate them, but it is a challenge.
Yeah.
You know, it's always evolving and always painful to like push something out of the top 10.
Yes.
You know, it is really, really bad.
Just don't have it. Just do what I do. Don't have a top 10.
Well, cool. Thanks for everybody, and thanks for watching the BGG show. Hope to see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.